today's video, I'm going to give you 15 signs of emotional neglect that if you experienced it in childhood, how it might be showing up in your adult life. But what you're going to realize is nearly half of those are things that you probably never even considered, that you probably thought were all healthy and normal. Most people do. And it's a very misunderstood part of childhood emotional neglect that people would think this is a sign that they didn't experience it, when in fact, it's proof that they did. So remember, if you're looking for solutions in your life to any aspect of your life, I encourage you to go to my online magazine site, www.thegreatnessuniversity.com. It is filled with articles and videos, book recommendations, links to my book, links to my private online groups, my masterclasses, one-on-one coaching, anything and everything you need to help you navigate whatever it is you're struggling with. So if you're looking for solutions, please, www.thegreatnessuniversity.com. Go there, make a bookmark to head over there and get the solutions that you deserve. Now let's jump into this topic and talk about these 15 signs. But really, before we do that, let's talk about what creates the emotional neglect. It's really straightforward. It's when a parent doesn't meet a child's attunement needs, and it's either repeatedly ignored or those needs are invalidated. And a lot of people are unaware of what attunement is. The best way to describe, most parents love their kids and, what do you mean? I attune to my child, I love my child. Well, kids don't know that you love them, all right? What it requires for our child to not feel emotionally neglected is they need focused emotional attention. And so the best way I can describe it is just, what's going on with you? Tell me all about your day. It's the ability for the adult to take their life stress, their relationship problems, their addiction problems, their emotional problems, everything that we as adults always struggle with, put it on the side and be completely emotionally present for our child. Well, let's face it, most of us parent with many other things on our mind. We multitask. We're running our business. We're pleasing our spouse. We're feeding the dogs. We do all these other things, and our kids, we drag along with us. So it's not focused, attuned attention. It is co-opted attention, is multitask attention. Well, that's part of how a child feels emotionally neglected, is they don't get that completely isolated, hey, I'm here for you. That's what creates all of this, all right? Now, it's been my life experience. I have yet to meet a single person who has not experienced emotional neglect on this planet. It is, anyone who tells you they haven't isn't present in their life, because it's just not possible. We're all human. We're all perfectly imperfect. Every parent at times is going to try and multitask their parenting. Well, when they do that, they are emotionally invalidating and ignoring their child's attunement needs. It's just a fact of life, doesn't make them a bad person, but it is reality. And therefore, all of us struggle with it. So, what are some of those characteristics that are now showing up as an adult? And remember, the second half of this is I'm going to get to the side of things you probably have never even thought of or heard of any other teachers bring up that are proof of emotional neglect. Now, the first one is we have very few childhood memories or big blank spots in our childhood. That's very common of emotional trauma. It's a dissociative technique to protect us. And so we just blank it out. I don't want to feel the pain of those moments. And so we have big blank spots. Well, again, most people I know, very few people remember all of their childhood. Most people remember very little of it. That is proof of neglect and pain in childhood. Number two, they'll say, I don't know a lot. Now, people would never really think about this as a sign of neglect, but here's why it is. What that tells me is that as a child, the parent did not allow the child to express or choose their morals and values, their needs and wants, their negotiables and non-negotiables. And so as an adult, they just don't know. They don't know. And so they're hit with that childhood pain moment of, I'm not allowed to decide here. Only mom and dad get to set the rules and decide everything. I'm not allowed to think or feel for myself. That's mom and dad's job. And so as an adult, they don't know. Think of all the people in your life who say, I don't know all the time. That's a sign of emotional neglect. It's heartbreaking, but that's how prevalent it is in society. Number 3, perfectionism. Well, we all know what that looks like. That's just a fear of, if I'm not perfect, I won't get love and attention and attunement. Number 4, feeling blank, numb, and empty. 70% of the population doesn't feel. So that's telling you 70% of the population is detached and dissociated from the emotions of their childhood. That's why they're feeling blank, numb, and empty. Number 5, low self-esteem. How in the world could we have high self-esteem when our parents were perfectly imperfect and couldn't be there for us? They couldn't attune to us because they were multitasking and doing so many different things. Again, in many cases, it doesn't mean that they didn't love us. It's just parenting is a tough job. It requires a lot. And we aren't always able to be there for our children. Well, in those moments, our children suffer wounds, and their defense mechanism is to blame themselves. And you see why a child would do that. If the child is to blame, that means they can fix it. And that's why their self-esteem is low, because they weren't able to fix it. And so they blame themselves. And so now as an adult, their self-esteem is low because they're still blaming themselves for anything and everything. What they don't recognize is really they may blame themselves for their career mistakes. Really what they're doing, it's a displacement. They're still blaming themselves for how they couldn't get mom and dad's attention. All right? Number 6, they can't ask for their needs and wants or ask for help. Well, again, think back to childhood. They asked. It didn't go too well. They asked for help. They asked for their needs and wants. They weren't allowed to, well, in many cases they weren't allowed, but they weren't addressed. Because remember, most parents are multitasking. So they can't meet those needs. Like, again, it's not that parents are always bad people. It's just a huge job. We minimize how big the job of parenting is and how crucial it is that our parents be there for our children so we don't leave wounds. And so these are the wounds that are left. All right? Number 7, they can't say no or they feel guilty for saying it. These are your people pleasers. Okay, again, look at what happened in childhood. They had to put aside their needs and wants, become people pleasers, and look at who, as a child, who's the only person who can say no? Mom or dad. So we all get raised with the belief that saying no is wrong. I have to do whatever mom and dad says, because what happened when you tried to say no? No, mom, I'm not going to eat that for dinner. No, mom, I'm not going to go to my room. No, I'm not going to play that sport. You usually got spanked, hit, yelled at, put in timeout. You got punished. So now as an adult, you can't say no, or you feel guilty for saying it, and you've become a people pleaser. Number 8, relationship instability. Well, do you know anybody on this planet that has relationship stability? Now, I'm not talking about people that have been together 60 years, because many of them coexist. They don't have relationship stability. They've just found a way to suffer through intolerable pain with each other. All right? But most of us have been through one or multiple marriages, breaking up after 6 to 24 months, and it's toxic and volatile. That's just typical relationship nowadays. That's how emotionally abandoned we all have been. All right? Now that can show up. Now we're starting to switch into the piece that you haven't heard. People with a relationship instability will either fear rejection, and here's the other side of it that people don't see and make the connection, or they can reject people easily. Most would think that that's a sign of confidence. No, that's a sign of false empowerment and detachment. They were never present in the relationship. That's why they can cut you off so quickly. They learned that maladaptive coping skill in childhood because their attunement needs weren't met. And so they've gone the powerful side. And that's what we're getting into, the false empowered side, which most people, especially in America, go, oh, that's the sign of success. No, this is what we don't recognize as what we promote as success is actually just as detrimental, just as toxic, and just as dysfunctional as the other side that we typically, recognize as, emotionally hurt and abandoned. And This number 9, they believe they can change a person. Think of the power in that. And this goes back to childhood. Remember, we take the blame because if I can blame myself, then I can change it. And therefore, I can get mom and dad to like me. And so now as an adult, I believe I can change you. I can make you like me, dislike me, whatever it may be. I have that much power over you. Do you realize how falsely empowered that position is? That means they think they're a god. Like these people who stay with men or women who are abusive, but I know their heart. They have so much potential. They just need love. That means I've placed myself in the godlike position. I am so powerful. I can change you and fix you and heal you. That is a sign of severe emotional neglect as a child, and they've covered over it with this false power. All right, number 10. They stay so busy they can't feel. Well, this is... Like, I love Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a beautiful human being who's done a lot to help people, but he might be one of, well, I don't know if I should say that. I was going to say he might be the most pain of anyone, and we're all in pain, so it's not fair to throw him under the bus like that. But that man is running. And if you listen to his interviews, he'll talk about his childhood. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. And so he has 45,000 businesses. Never sleeps or does anything because he doesn't want to feel the pain of his childhood. He's just, and that's what the entrepreneur is. The self-starter, they're just running from pain, keeping themselves busy with activities, their career, all these different things. Even parenting, like it can be so-called wholesome things, working out, being an attentive mother or father, but it's always to the extreme. So they can never have to feel the pain of the abandonment and the emotional neglect that's underneath it. Number 11, again, these are the falsely empowered side. They're grandiose, better than. This is the false esteem. These are usually the super successful athletes, super successful politicians, actors, actresses. They're way up here. And what they've done is, again, because of the emotional neglect, they've gone to the other side of it. If I go become all of this, you will love me. I'll be honest with you, part of my, I recognize that part of my career in doing it publicly is based on this. It's grandiosity. It's a better than and a false esteem. Look, I'm on here telling people what to do. Like I'm some grand poobah and have the answers to everything. Like the truth is, well, I was going to say I'm full of it. That's not true. I've worked my tail off and studied a lot of things and learned a lot of things. But there's a grandiosity to what I do, and a better than and a false esteem. Look, I'm sitting there talking into a camera. You're not sitting across from me and go, "You're wrong, Kenny." Like, do you see? There's a protection there. Look at how I'm dealing with my emotional neglect. There's a wall between us, and I get to sit here and say what I want. But you're not sitting across from me. Now, am I happy to have this conversation in person? Of course I am. But the point is I have to hold myself accountable that this is one of the falsely empowering ways I deal with my emotional neglect. Anyone in a position like this, that's what they're doing. Okay? Number 12, they're domineering and controlling. Now we see this as, a sign of success. They're a strong, the boss bitch babe and the strong, powerful man. They're dominant, controlling. Tell people they don't take what off of anybody. Well, what do you think that's hiding? Remember, everything's a polar opposite. When I'm overly grandiose and strong, it's just because I'm hiding how small and insignificant and weak I feel. All right, and that holds true for me too. All right, I'm the biggest culprit of all of this. So make sure when you hear all this stuff, I'm not pointing the finger. I'm pointing the finger at me first. All right. The biggest way I found out about all this stuff is I had to tear down myself first and go, "Oh my God, that's me." Okay? So don't hear me as saying I don't do any of this stuff, because that's just not true. All right? Number 13, they are success and achievement oriented. This is also falsely empowering, because why do you think the most successful are the most miserable? You wonder, everyone's like, why do all these rich people end up taking their life and doing all these things? It's because they're feeling tremendous neglect and they're covering over it with the pursuit of outside esteem, something outside of themselves to fill the hole inside of themselves. Success is not based on achievement. It's not based on something outside of us. True success is the ability to conquer our demons and be at peace, whether we have the money and the accolades or nothing. That's success. It's an internal construct. It's not external. But people who've been suffered emotional neglect as a child and haven't healed it, they're pursuing the external. Number 14, critical and judgmental. Well, what I have, 700 videos that are critical and judgmental. Now, some less than others. I do my best to be kind and loving, but I am giving critiques and judgments. And people that are very critical and judgmental, again, why do you think they do it? Because they were so critiqued and judged as a child. And so they've taken the falsely empowered position of, I'm in control now, I'm the boss, I'm going to tell you and everybody else, what's right or wrong. Okay, so politicians and civil rights leaders, they're really coming, people like myself or people that really are because I push an agenda. I have an agenda I'm pushing. Well, while there's nobility in pushing that agenda, we cannot separate ourselves from the truth that our desire to have this situation fixed is because of pain within ourselves. We are basically using society and the world to try and heal a piece of ourselves. That doesn't mean there aren't tremendous benefits to it, but you can't separate the two. Our passion for it has to do with our own pain. Like me, I'm trying to bring into reality that childhood affects everything. Well, why? Because my childhood affected everything. And everyone's, like the science, first of all, the science is just clear, that's what it is. But it's my passion because it's my pain. That's the same for anyone in a falsely empowered position that's pushing an agenda. They're pushing the agenda because it's pain inside of them that they want the whole world to adopt and heal. Doesn't mean it doesn't have benefit, but it is about the person who's pushing the agenda. That's why they're critical and judgmental. All right? Number 15, needless and wantless. You will see this. This is the black and white, all or nothing. What do I need people to help me? No. And so we think it's strong, like we're teaching women. What do you mean? You don't need a man. You can do it yourself. We taught that to men. You don't need a woman, so men treated women like dirt. Well, we're teaching women to treat men like dirt. We just keep doing, all we do is pass the football back and forth instead of healing and growing together and working on all of these dynamics in unison. And ultimately, what does that come back to? All of us have suffered emotional neglect, and we still want to deny that our childhoods were painful. And so we keep looking for ancillary topics to push and promote so we don't have to face the core problem, all that pain and sadness that our parents were perfectly imperfect and left wounds in us. We want to do anything but that. Well, that's why I made that my mission, because everything starts from that. We heal that, we'll have better success at all these other wonderful, great ideas and things I think would be wonderful to address, but they won't achieve anything until we address the core. Okay? So there are your, what would be called the disempowered, those were the first group of things, and the falsely empowered ways that emotional neglect shows up in our life. Now, as far as getting solutions, again, go to my website, www.thegreatnessuniversity.com. I'd encourage you to look through the self-love videos, articles, the book recommendations, everything dealing with the self-love tag to start learning. Basically what it is learning to nurture and love yourself in the ways, reparent yourself and heal the wounds that your parents weren't able to do. Also, go to the tag that's about childhood trauma. We need to heal the pain that hasn't been healed. All right? If you think this will help somebody, please share it. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you think. And as always, wherever you are in this process, enjoy the journey.